Hey there, it's BoardGameDave, and today we're taking a look at a game called Wild Gardens from Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, who was kind enough to send me this review copy. Now, this game is currently in fulfillment mode, but if you like your own copy, you can still late pledge using the link down in the description below. In this game, you and up to 3 friends are going to travel around the main board, foraging for ingredients, using those ingredients to craft delicious recipes, and then using those recipes to serve your friends and guests along the way. The game takes place over the course of 6 days, and at the end of 6 days, the player with the most points wins. Now, this game has a fairly simple teach, so let's head to the table. I'll give you a really quick rules overview, and then we'll come back up and I'll give you my full review. Alright, here we are ready to play Wild Gardens, and we're taking a look at the main board right here. This is where you'll be traversing along the route as indicated by these arrows, skipping over other players, and stopping to forage resources or stopping at these picnic areas to cook recipes or serve your guests. Now, below the main board, we have some recipes here. Now, each recipe has the required ingredients, so in this case 3 bark and 1 nut, right? It's got points that you'll score as soon as you craft this recipe and the type that it is. So this is a dessert, obviously. And then below these recipes, we have guests that we're gonna be serving. So you're gonna use completed ingredients, completed recipes to serve these guests. Now, each guest has a recipe type requirement. So Rowan wants a dinner. They all have a different effect. Sometimes they're when served, immediate effects, they're passive effects, there's end of game effects, and then you have the points up here. Now, normally when you score points, if you look at the scoreboard, you're gonna be moving your pollinator. So if I was the blue player, I'd move, let's say I got 3 points, I would move to the 3 spot, right? Right there. Now, sometimes in the game, you might have noticed that jar on that guest card. Sometimes you'll move jars. So if I got 4 jars, for example, I would actually move 1, 2, 3, 4 jars. And you can see by the distribution of the jars, that's a big way of getting points. At the end of the game, you'll add your pollinator score and your jar score. So you want to pay attention to those jars, which primarily appear on these guests. So anyway, on your turn, let's look at your player board. You're gonna do a few things. So if I'm the purple player here, right, I've got these 5 action tokens. I'm gonna use one of them to indicate how many spaces I wanna move, again, skipping other players. So if I wanna stop here, right, I would use my 2. Now, I get to put this action token anywhere I want on my board. I have 3 different zones. Basically, there's a foraging zone, there's a cooking and serving zone, and then there's a studying and reserving zone. So let's say that, well, we'll talk about these one at a time. In the foraging zone, right, after you place your token there, right, you're gonna move that many spaces, again, skipping opponents, so 1, 2, and then you can forage. That's what the hand means. I can take 2 ingredients. Now, those are gonna be anywhere adjacent to my space. So berries, nuts, or the bark there, right? You can take 2 of the same, 2 different. It's up to you. That's foraging. Over here is cooking or serving. So if I have the required ingredients, I can pay them, discard them to gain one of these recipe cards, and I would put that in my cooked recipes area. Now, this can only happen at one of these picnic areas, just so you know, okay? Same goes for serving your guests. If you have the required cooked recipes like this, you can discard them to serve one of these guests. So let's take a look at Athena and Odin. If I had a drink and one of any other type of recipe, I could discard them to gain Athena and Odin. I would get some points, and I have this new discard ability, okay? So that's cooking and serving. And then the last one over here is studying or reserving. So reserving is very easy. You're gonna take any of these cards in the supply, or I believe a face-up card as well, and you're gonna gain 2 points. Now, those aren't, crafted or cooked yet, but they'll hang out here in your reserved cards. And again, don't forget to get your points. The other thing you can do in this zone is study. So the way this works, and this is really interesting, kind of the crux of the game is, if you look above the board, we have a little library there, right? I'll bring it over to you. So when you study, you're gonna take, oh gosh, a tiny, adorable miniature book, right? Corresponding to a resource that you're adjacent to. So again, in my example, if I moved 2 spaces, 1, 2, I could check out the berry book, the acorn book, or the bark book. And the reason that matters is because the book that I check out is also gonna give me the skill token that it's next to. So let's say I take this acorn book, I put that on my player board, and now I get this skill token, which we already know is a foraging icon. So if I put that right here, and what that means is when I take this foraging action now, right, I could stop here and get 3 ingredients, and I'll show you something really cool. If on a later turn, I studied again and I got this skill token, right, I would put that, well, anywhere I want, right, but it might be nice to put that here, and then let me show you something. If it's my turn, right, and I've got this set up and I put that 2 there, I could go 1, 2. Now I can forage 3 times and I'm gonna get a bark. So in this case, I could take 3 bark and an acorn. And once I have all those, right, and this is where these amazing little tokens come in. There's over 100 of these tiny little tokens, color printed. They're very, very, very pretty. So I could take that in 1 turn. So you can see how these skill tokens, and again, there's a whole bag chock full of skill tokens with all sorts of different abilities, things that'll get you points, things that'll get you resources, things that'll let you move up 1 or down 1 space, right? So all sorts of different skill tokens, and they'll be replenished out here in the library. As you do that, your turns get stronger and stronger. Now that I have 3 bark and 1 acorn, I've got everything I need to craft some hickory ice cream. So my next turn could be moving to a picnic table space. So maybe I use my 1 through 4, right, to move 2 spaces. 1, 2, I could pay my resources and craft my hickory ice cream. So that's the way it works. Now, just a couple other things. With these library books up here, there are some free actions you can do on your turn as many times as you like. So one of them is returning a book. So in order to return books so you can check out more books, all you have to do is pay the corresponding ingredient. If I've got this acorn book, I can return it by paying an acorn. That's a free action I can do on my turn. And also, you can at any time pay 3 matching ingredients as 1 other ingredient. So it lets you kind of have some flexibility there. So as you use these action tokens, eventually you're gonna run out, right? So in that first day of the trip, you're gonna use all 5, right? Your 6th turn, right, after you used all those, is gonna be a resting action. And resting works like this. We haven't looked at this location board yet, but there's a board that looks like this. And we have all these rest benefits. So I'm gonna choose one of my action tokens here, right? And whichever one I put up here, I'm gonna take that corresponding benefit. So if it's the 1 in this case, I get 2 of the ingredient over there, 2 mushrooms, right? And you can get points, you can get other things, you can move up your jars. But again, whatever token you use, that goes here. And importantly, that stays here. The next day, I've only got 4 action tokens to spend. After that day, I'm gonna use another token and put it here and gain that benefit, right? The 3rd day, day 3, I've only got 3 action tokens, so the days get quicker and quicker. Finally, after that 3rd day, you're gonna put a token here. That's the end of the 3rd day, and we are ready to reset. We're gonna end that trip and do a new trip. What that means very quickly is a big reset of the board. So all these tokens are gonna be removed. We're gonna remove all of the ingredients, all of the guests down here, and we're gonna flip over a new location like so. By the way, each of these locations, and there's a lot of them, have a different at the beginning of the day. So each day, and there's 6 days in this game, you're gonna activate that ability, that benefit, that one-time thing. So just so you know, and of course, that 2nd trip, we're gonna do the same thing, 3 days, go through, rest, take those abilities, so on and so forth. At the end of 6 days, we're gonna add up our score, right? And scoring is very, very simple. We're gonna add wherever your pollinator is, that's very easy, plus wherever your jar is. We're also looking for any end game abilities. For example, right, this card right here, little ones, it says, at game end, discard 1 set of the 8 ingredient types to gain 10 points. You can do this multiple times. That's a big end game scoring card. So any of these that you have, you'd score those. And then every 4 resources is 1 point as well. But that's the basic gist of the game. So now that you've got a basic understanding of how to play this game, let's go through my 7-point criteria for reviewing a game, starting with the art and components. And of course, this is where Wild Gardens absolutely shines. This game is absolutely gorgeous, as you can even see from the cover, but as you delve into the art on the cards and the components, Everything in this game is just so vibrant and saturated with color and life and imagery and imagination, and the world created by Liz Menold, the artist, is just so warm and inviting and cozy and safe, and the characters seem very friendly and approachable, and they're all very happy and just enjoying life out in nature, and the whimsical characters and animals, and there's some kind of mythical creatures that you meet along the way. It's just such a cozy, safe world created in this game, and I love that. And I'll mention here that the diversity inside this game, as you look at these characters, is just very refreshing and almost surprising. There are people of all shapes and sizes and ages and ethnicities, and it is very cool to see that representation on the cover, in the cards, as you meet and, get to know some of these characters, especially in the solo scenarios. It's just awesome to see such a wide net of humanity in the cast of characters in this game. So I love that as well. As far as components go, the components in this game are fantastic. Now, of course, if you're getting the base level, you're not getting all of those wooden components, but there's still a lot of beautifully color printed wooden components like your character tokens, your score tokens, your little action tokens that you use. So lots of beautiful wooden pieces. And of course, if you bump up your pledge level to the Gamers Bundle, you're getting over 180 fantastic, really satisfying wooden components, those ingredient tokens as well as those source tokens. So then you really have a, fully immersive and really deluxe copy of this game with all those wooden components. So for the base game, I would say 9 out of 10 for the art and components. Really solid components in there, even with the punch board. And then if you're getting that deluxe Gamers Bundle version, I would give it a 10 out of 10 for art and components. Second is complexity versus audience. And overall, I think there's a pretty good match here. The box says ages 14 and up, and I'm sure younger, more experienced gamers would be fine playing this game as well. But there are just a few things that seem a little bit clunky or not intuitive that might make the game appear a little bit more complex than it seems at first glance. Things like there's this when served ability that pops up from time to time where you can activate any when served ability on the main board, the main supply, or on your player board, and that icon maybe is a little confusing. There's also this dual scoring system with the jars, and that can be a little confusing to teach sometimes. And also just the length in general, right? The play length might surprise people who look at this box and think, light kind of filler game, maybe, 30 minutes to an hour. The box is 90 to 120 minutes. So again, might be a little bit long for a casual gamer who feels like this is up their alley. So overall, pretty good match. I'm going to give it an 8.5 for complexity versus audience. Third is thematic integration, but I'm going to go ahead and combine that with intuitive mechanics for this game because those two things go really well together in Wild Gardens. So thematically, of course, you're going out in nature, collecting ingredients, making recipes and serving them to your guests, and the gameplay and the mechanisms of the game really go along with that very well. Of course, there's resource collection, there's sort of contract fulfillment, and then you're using those recipes to serve those guests, and they each have different abilities. And overall, the game is very thematic. You can sort of feel what you're doing coming through in the gameplay. So I'll give it a 9 out of 10 for thematic integration. And along with that, the intuitive mechanics, right? It all makes a lot of sense, and the turns are intuitive. Now, like I said a second ago, there's a few little fiddly things like the jars and maybe understanding some of those resting bonuses, but beyond that, it's very intuitive because it ties so well with the theme. So for intuitive mechanics, I'll also give it a 9 out of 10. Fifth is replayability, and I have to say, unfortunately, there's not a lot of replayability baked into this game. Now, that being said, there's those location cards, and you'll typically see 2 of those per game, and there's the double-sided playboard, so you can try playing on the back side of the map, and lots of character cards and recipes to explore, but beyond that, you're pretty much playing the same game every time. Now, I would give it an 8 out of 10 for replayability, except for those solo scenarios. So it comes with, I believe, 7 solo scenarios to work through, and I love that discovery element and the story and the narrative. I think it's so great. In fact, I actually tried playing a solo campaign with Hannah as a 2-player game, and just had to tweak maybe 1 or 2 tiny things, but overall it worked really well. It's like a cooperative, campaign game, and I really enjoyed that. So if you want to give that a try, it's worth doing, and it definitely adds to the replay factor as you tell this really cute, intriguing story as you play through the game. But beyond that, As the base game, not a solo scenario, I'd say it's about an 8 out of 10. So with the solo scenarios, I'll bump it up to an 8.5 out of 10 for replayability. Sixth is length and fun factor, and unfortunately, this is where Wild Gardens is gonna lose some points for me. So the first time I ever played it, I took it with me to a family get-together, and I taught it to my cousins who are more experienced than the average casual gamer, and between the four of us, the game went almost 2 hours, and it just kind of felt like a slog, unfortunately. And I don't know if it's because some of the, mechanisms just weren't clicking, or some of the iconography was just a little hard to understand, but either way, it felt longer than the hour and 48 minutes that it took, which is not a good sign in a board game, especially for a first, experience. So after that, I played it twice with Hannah at 2 players, and even that was about an hour and a half each time. So, now she was new to the game, to be fair, but even still, an hour and a half for a 2-player game is a long time. Now, I will say that solo is easy breezy. I can get through a solo game with, the campaign elements in about 45 minutes. So I enjoy the solo experience, but as you add more players, it just gets longer and longer. And unfortunately, there's no way to mitigate for, higher player count. So it's not like in a 4-player game you use, less action tokens or anything like that. So it just, gets, proportionally longer as you add more players. So unfortunately, it just seems to overstay its welcome a little bit for me. Now, that might not be your experience. And if you don't have AP prone players, you might be able to breeze through in an hour or so. But because of the ever-changing board and thinking through the chain of combos that you want to pull off on your turn, there's a lot to think about, to be fair. So it's just a little bit long for my taste. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for length and fun factor. Oh, and I should mention one other thing really quickly about the pacing of the game. Halfway through the game, after the first 3 days, you reset everything, basically. So all those tokens get wiped off the board. They go in the bag, you shuffle them up, the books go back to the library, and you reset the skill tokens, and you flip a new location card. It's a lot, and it almost seems like it just really interrupts the pacing and the flow of the game, because all of a sudden the board's wiped and you're starting everything from scratch. So I like that part of the game. I like that it refreshes the game for the second half, but it does seem to kind of mess with the flow of the game for what it's worth. And finally, cost versus value. Now, if you check out the BackerKit page, you'll find that the base game is going for $50 plus shipping, and the Gamers Bundle with all those wooden tokens and the 3 mini expansion packs comes out to $125 plus shipping. So I'm actually going to give both pledge levels a score here for cost versus value, starting with the base game. So $50 plus $16 for shipping, $66 for Wild Gardens. I think that's a fairly decent price. You're pushing almost $70 with tax. It is a gorgeous game. It's beautiful. It's cozy. It's inviting. There are not many games I can say in my collection that are this colorful and cute and cozy. That being said, that's a lot of money, $66 plus tax, and there are some phenomenal games that you can get for around the same price, if not cheaper, that might do a little bit more than this game does as far as gameplay goes. It sounds kind of cliche or vague, but there's not a ton of game here is my only concern with spending, again, almost $70 on Wild Gardens. Now, with that all in mind, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 for cost versus value. Now, the Gamers Bundle, again, with all those wooden tokens, and to be fair, you're getting over 180 wooden tokens. So it's a giant stash of wooden, tiny, adorable ingredient tokens. They're so amazing. Plus those source tokens that go out on the board, and those 3 mini expansions, which include, media creators and just new elements to gameplay that you can add in those little expansion packs. That comes out again to $125. And to me, that jump from $50 for the base game to $125 for that Gamers Bundle, that is astronomical. You're paying 2.5 times more for wooden token upgrades and those 3 expansion packs. And I just feel like that is a huge, gargantuan leap. Now, if you're the kind of person that wants to go full deluxe and you're going to get this to the table and you want that table presence factor of people going, wow, that is beautiful. And I will say firsthand, this game has that with the premium tokens. It makes people, do a triple take because it's so pretty on the board. But Is it worth $125 plus the $18 shipping plus the tax? I just don't know. That's a lot of money. You would have to, as a pragmatist, you'd really have to know that you're going to play this game a lot and make it worth it, is my opinion. So I give it a 7 out of 10 for that basically all-in pledge level. Now, there is an option where you could get the base game and just get those wooden token upgrades, and that would come out to $105. That seems somewhat reasonable to me if you're not all about those little promo card expansions, so that's an option as well. So overall, for cost and value, I'd say, depending on your pledge level, maybe a 7.5 out of 10. And that's my review of Wild Gardens, a game that is absolutely dripping with color and coziness and gorgeous art and such a tranquil and peaceful and calming and serene playing style. It's wonderful. Of course, I've been gushing so much about how gorgeous this game is. And without those length and expensive price tag considerations, this game would be, you know, an absolute stunner. But all those things taken into account, I give it an 8.5 out of 10, a great score. Now, if you want to know more about Wild Gardens, of course, there are many playthrough videos and review videos here on YouTube. If you want to ask me anything about the game or my experience with it, of course, leave a comment down there. I will absolutely get back to you for sure. So ask away in the comments. If you'd like to check out another game that came out recently that features really unique, fantastic art with lots of animals, you can check out Harmonies right here. If you're in the mood for cute anthropomorphic animals and a little bit more player interaction in your games, you can check out Tiny Towns right here. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Take care and happy gaming. Bye.